Now this procedural changes is a very short presentation, but we wanted to make sure you're aware of some things that are happening procedurally as well as those things that are happening with the legislation today. The first one we'd like to review is our objectives for today. Review the procedural changes and provide resources for further information. And also answer any questions as we go through this. This is very short, but we want to make sure you're aware of it as well. The first group is from the active member group. We would like to explain to you a little bit about the P1A and the C1A forms and make sure you're aware of the online contributing reporting system and give you updates on what's happening with the termination or refunds. The active member group, as we'd mentioned, has a new form, the P1A form.
Well, it's not really necessarily a new form.
It's not new, excuse me.
It's just kind of a new process.
A new process or clarification of the process, excuse me. And this is for transfer of service credits between various employers. So if you work for one city and want to transfer that time to another city. When is this form actually needed? We just want to make sure you're aware of it. Again, it's not a new process. It's just clarifying the process so you're aware of it. For new members with prior service from one another, either public safety or CORP with the employers, they can transfer from system to system. This is when the form is actually needed, the P1A or the C1A. For members terminating employment or transferring to another PSPRS or CORP employer. In other words, if you're going back and forth or terminating, this form is also needed in our office to move that process forward for transfer of credit service. If a person terminates or needs a refund, what happens to those members' contributions when a person actually terminates employment? This has been an interesting question because now members can request a refund of their contributions, but also in the law it states that members can leave their money on account for a period of time. Because maybe they have a year or two, they're deciding what they're going to do. They might find another employer to go to work for, and then they decide to come back into police work or fire work. They can actually leave their money on account until they've made that determination. Now, what is the implication of both of these options for the employee? If they refund, we want to make sure that you understand that they forfeit all their rights under the system. In other words, they would leave the system, and if they were to come back as a new employee, they'd be affected by the new legislation from Senate Bill 1609 from 2011. They would be considered a new employee under a new plan. If they left their money on account, which they're able to do for whatever period of time they need to, they can maintain the benefit rights in hope for future membership may be reestablished with the employer, same employer, or go back to a different employer over a period of time. So this has come up, and we want to make sure all the local boards are aware of this, is because oftentimes somebody may leave, refund their money, and they said, well, nobody told me I forfeited all my rights in the system. So we now can keep their money on account for whatever period of time is necessary, just to make sure they don't have to get in as a new member under the new plan and the new rights, because it is a 25-year retirement plan if they did refund their money as opposed to the 20-year retirement plan as before. And there are other qualifications for the new membership, as we've talked about before.
I just want to pop in really quick, and one of the reasons why we bring this up, like Don said, is because we want to ensure that the members understand what decision they're making by requesting refunds, and how that affects their future participation in the plan. But the main reason why we bring this up is from our active members group, we are hearing that these members who are applying for refunds are being advised or being told that it is a requirement once they terminate that they must refund their monies. And so it's really important that you all as local boards or employer groups understand that, yes, it's an option that the member can refund and take their money, but it's not a requirement in the system, because we don't want to be putting any members in any predicament if in the future they actually do decide to return into a covered PSPRS position or covered CORP position, or EORP position for that matter, and have to deal with the repercussions of doing so if they've refunded. So it's just important. We just want to make sure that we're educating and putting the word out there to our employer groups and our local boards that when you do speak to members who are terminating with you all as an employee, that they aren't required to take a refund out of the system.
Thank you. As we've spoken to our retired members group, we wanted to make sure you're aware of Forms P16 or a C16. Now, this form actually helps a member acknowledge and is a required document for the retirement paperwork. This is fairly new within the last year or so. And what happens with this process, it presents to the member the return to work provisions. In other words, you, the local board, says when you're retiring now, you have to understand that you cannot come back to work for us within a year unless you meet all those provisions we've talked about before. So it is something that needs to be done individually with each member. The form needs to be signed so they're aware that they can't come back to work with you within that year period. And it's just important that is part of the retirement process. It also requires the member's initials and signatures in the presence of the witness. Usually you, the local board secretary, would sign that and send it in. We've had some retirement forms come in and that has not been signed. They're not even aware of the return to work rules. So we just want to make sure you're aware that that is part of the process of any retirement package coming through the system at this point.
And again, just to piggyback on that, as a required document, it's required not only with normal retirements, disability retirements, etc., but it's also as part of the enter-drop packet. When the individual enters drop, it is a required document as part of the packet that's being submitted to the system, and it is also a requirement when they exit drop. So we're trying to, again, ensure that the goal is to ensure that the member understands all the provisions associated with terminating employment and getting a retirement out of the system, and under what conditions they could return back to the employer from which they retired. So traditionally, when it comes to the witness, signature, hopefully the witness is the local board secretary who's doing the paperwork process with the member, and so at that same time, the local board also is kind of acknowledging and understands what the return to work provisions are as well. So again, this is a relatively new document, or within the year, as Don said, but it is a required document. So if that is not part of that retirement packet that's coming through, you will definitely hear from one of our individuals from our retired members group, more than likely Joanne or Tara or Bonnie. So.
All righty. We've also asked our insurance department about the insurance subsidy payments. We just wanted to review briefly with you that these insurance subsidy payments are available when, and you probably know the answer to this now after our discussion, the member has retiree coverage from a former employer, which would be you, or perhaps the member has enrolled in an insurance coverage program through the retirement system, which we piggyback with on ASRS or through ADOA, whatever the qualifications may be. But we just want to make sure that's clear that the subsidy payments are not made or distributed unless it meets these qualifications. Now, a lot of people have asked, what are the insurance subsidy payments and what are the amounts? As we wanted to give you the chart so you're aware of that, and that's $150 for member only, and that's a single coverage if there's no Medicare eligibility. It's $100 if it's a member only, single coverage. It jumps to $260. Now, this is additional payments that are made out of the system to cover the cost of the premium. It's not we're making this payment. This is just an additional subsidy amount applied towards the premium. So if the coverage is $1,000 for a family coverage, then we'd apply a $260 subsidy payment for that. And it's $215 if it's a member and dependent or Medicare eligible through family coverage, or $170 for family coverage if one or more members are Medicare eligible. So we just want to make sure you're aware of the chart and what the subsidy amounts would be. Again, it's paid to the retiree coverage from the employer or the insurance coverage through the retirement system. Are there any questions about some of these additional things that we've discussed so far today? Again, these are just processes, procedures, updates from our groups that we work with here in Public Safety Retirement System. Any questions from the webinar group? Any questions from those who are here today? If not, I did want to review briefly with you, again, some contact information, additional resources as you're aware. We wanted to make sure that you knew about our local board training department. We wanted to give you the active members department manager, LaDon Toger, also the retired members manager, Bonnie Brown, and Annette Jorgensen. They can all be reached through the emails addresses provided. This is a great way to communicate with our different groups here. And if you have any questions about the process we've talked about, be sure to email them individually or us, and we'll get answers for you. We appreciate your attendance today. Thank you for coming. This has been a very, again, a healthy discussion through the webinar, and you didn't even have to leave your offices. You just got to listen to everything and participate through the questions you asked. Thank you for attending, and we'll see you at our next webinar experience.